Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to episode 4 of GSO Ocean Classroom Live. We are streaming live to Facebook and YouTube, so hello to both of those audiences. My name is Holly Morin, and I am a marine biologist and science communicator with the Inner Space Center at the University of Rhode Island's Graduate School of Oceanography, and I will again be your host today. I've been the host for the other Ocean Classroom events as well, but today we're taking a little bit of a different approach to our classroom experience. In honor of World Ocean Day, we're actually launching a series of exploration resources that our Inner Space Center team has worked on with Rhode Island PBS, local Rhode Island educators, as well as some other scientists and engineers at URI GSO. But this episode is still going to be just as conversational as our other episodes have been, so we want to make sure your questions are incorporated to keep that conversation going. So please remember, you can ask questions at any time during today's live event, and you can just type those questions into the Facebook comment box. It's under the video player or in the YouTube chat box if you're watching on that platform today, and we'll try to get to as many of those questions as possible. So World Ocean Day, it's coming up, right? So it's going to be Monday, June 8th. That is World Ocean Day. If you haven't marked your calendar yet, definitely do so now. This is an international event that offers the entire globe a moment to pause, think about, and celebrate our ocean, that vast resource that covers our blue planet. Remember, about 71% of the entire Earth's surface is actually covered by the ocean. It also gives us a chance to think about how we can better protect and restore the ocean, as well as share our knowledge about this resource with others. So there are a whole host of events that are happening in conjunction with World Ocean Day. So be sure to check out the World Ocean Day website, which I'm sure will get posted in the comments box. And then our group is actually celebrating World Ocean Day by launching this new series of ocean exploration videos. And what this does is it's going to be pairing extraordinary deep sea footage provided by the Ocean Exploration Trust with creative lesson modules. And these videos and their associated resources will then be part of the larger library of materials that are offered through PBS Learning Media. So before we dive deeper into these resources and chat with the local Rhode Island educators who helped to develop them, I want to introduce Colleen Kenyon with Rhode Island PBS, just so we can all start off with a broader picture of understanding of what PBS Learning Media is and the treasure trove of resources that it offers. So Colleen, why don't you say hi to everybody if you don't mind, and then offer a little bit of your perspective on PBS Learning Media, how the resources are created, etc.
Hi, Holly. Thanks so much for having me here today to talk about this. We're really excited about this new collection on PBS Learning Media. So PBS Learning Media is a free website for educators and students, and that's really any educator. It's great for use in the classroom, but working at home is great as well. Everybody is able to access and all kinds of topics. We focused here on the ocean-related resources that we're talking about today, but really just about any topic that you can think of, you can find educational resources from PBS stations around the country.
And then a lot of the work that you all do, you actually, which is basically the same format or formula that we followed, is that you actually connect with educators to kind of develop these supporting materials for each of the video resources that are in that library.
Yes, so in our department, we are former educators who are now working for the Rhode Island PBS station. And our areas of expertise vary. So for every resource that we create, we work with local educators who are using resources like these in their classroom or looking for resources like these in their classroom. And so they help us to make sure that the resources will be most valuable and easily used in the classroom.
Awesome. Thanks, Colleen. So a reminder to everybody out there, if y'all have questions at any time, make sure you type those in in either the comment box or on the chat box on YouTube. And those can be about PBS Learning Media, how to access the resources. I know that we actually have a video we can show in a little bit that actually walks through our different ocean video resources in the PBS Learning Media library. But if you want to talk about educators and involvement in ocean science, etc., type those in at any time, and we will try to get to as many of them as we can. So talking about educators, thank you, Colleen. Now that we kind of understand a little bit more about PBS Learning Media, I do want to introduce the two Rhode Island educators that we collaborated with, that the ISC, URI, GSO, and Rhode Island PBS collaborated with. And their input was really quite critical. They're the ones that, they have an understanding of what students are interested in, what questions they may have, but also as an educator, what they may need in their classroom to achieve certain content standards, etc. So we really appreciated their efforts and their perspective. So we worked with Alison Murray, who is a science teacher at Central Falls High School, as well as Shannon Donovan, who is with the Scituate School District. So Alison, why don't you say hello to everybody and share a little bit about yourself?
Holly, for having me here today. My name's Alison Murray. I am by training actually a physicist, and I'm currently a science teacher at Central Falls High School, and I teach chemistry, physics, and engineering, which is what we're going to talk about today. And I was particularly excited about this project because I have, since the time I was small, had a love affair with the ocean. So I love everything about the ocean, and especially since I'm a scientist, then I love everything about ocean science. So that's what was really exciting about this project.
And then Alison, did you, I know we usually like to have some pictures that we have to go along with our intros, and you had some pictures, I think, if I remember correctly, of the shore.
Yes, so one picture is me walking on the beach, and
What's the story behind this picture? Where is it?
This is just last weekend down in Westerly, but over the course of my lifetime, this picture has been, repeated all around the world on beaches all over. And in that picture, I have a bag in my hand. I was looking for shells. And so that is a particular interest of mine, is beachcombing and looking for shells.
Awesome. I think that's fantastic that you have a connection to the ocean. Now you're able to kind of bring that into the classroom with your students as well.
Yeah.
Shannon. So Shannon, do you want to say hello and introduce yourself, not only through words, but through the pictures that you've given to us as well?
Hi, everybody. My name's Shannon Donovan. I am the STEAM coordinator and the CTE coordinator in Scituate schools, but I also taught science there for 15 years before stepping into these roles. And I'm kind of a big nerd. I just love learning new things. I love being outdoors, exploring. And several years back, I started teaching pre-engineering and robotics. And so I needed to learn a lot of stuff. And so I sought out lots of professional development. And one of those things that I found was the Rhode Island Teacher at Sea program at GSO. And I had an opportunity to go out on the Endeavor. So I think you've got a couple of pictures of me out on the Endeavor. And that was where I first got to see a remotely operated vehicle up close and personal, and got to see some of the real challenges that the engineers and scientists had to deal with in that case. And through that experience, I learned about the Nautilus, which is another vessel, an exploration vessel. And I had the opportunity 2 summers ago to be a science communication fellow. That's me meeting Herc, the ROV aboard Nautilus. And it was just an amazing experience. And so when this project came up, I was excited to get involved so that I could share more about what I had learned through my experience on Endeavor and Nautilus as a science communicator.
Fantastic. Awesome. Thanks, Shannon. So again, a reminder to everybody, if you have any questions, definitely type them in and we'll get to as many as we can today as possible. But I'm actually going to throw a question at Alison and Shannon to kick things off here. So ocean exploration or ocean science topics aren't traditionally or necessarily something that folks might think about being covered in school science classes. They might think, oh, if you take a special, if you take oceanography or marine science and at a high school level, then yeah, you might get into these topics. But I think that there's a lot of really great connections that can be made from that kind of focused content view to a larger, I love that Shannon is holding up a large mannequin head right now, to investigating these topics. So Shannon, because you're putting up a mannequin head, I'm going to toss this to you first then. So why don't you talk about that a little bit, is how do you incorporate this type of topic into your classroom?
Yeah, so I've never taught a strictly oceanographic type of course, but I've taught a lot of physical earth science types of courses in environmental science. So the example that I brought in here has to do with talking about pressure. So before I went out to Nautilus, I went online and purchased 2 of these styrofoam heads because I wanted to have an artifact to bring back to my students to demonstrate the pressure of the deep. And so my first night aboard the vessel, I took the twin to this and passed it around and introduced myself to folks and asked them if they wanted to sign my head. And then when the ROVs went down, they gave us an opportunity to put some styrofoam cups and styrofoam heads in a mesh bag on the ROV. And this is what came back. So the crew autographed it and drew pictures and stuff, and we sent it down.
Shannon, can you put them side by side just so folks can see them?
Yeah. It's astonishing.
Yeah.
So
how deep did the smaller head get sent down to? Do you remember?
This was 1,100 meters.
There you go.
I believe it's written on here somewhere, the cruise number and everything. Yeah. So, just the pressure that organisms have to deal with at depth and the changes in pressure as they change their depth in the water column. So, we talked about this in physical earth science, but we could also talk about this in basic biology classes and talking about adaptations. So there's lots of ways you can weave this stuff in and actually make those other topics more interesting.
And then Alison, I know in your classroom, I know just because I've connected with your students before, there's a lot of interest in engineering. So is there an easy pathway to kind of connect ocean science and engineering in the classroom as well?
Oh yeah, very easy because, engineering and robotics is about using technology to solve problems. And, ROVs are just underwater robots and they solve a lot of problems. The main problem is it's very hard for a human being to go to some of these depths to observe what's going on there. And instead, you can send an ROV, a robot.
Perfect. All righty. So that is a great segue into the first video that we're going to share with everybody. So I want to acknowledge the efforts of Alison and Shannon as they really did help shape these videos, as well as develop the supporting materials for the video resources that will be up on or are up on now PBS Learning Media. So the first one that we're going to actually go to is about remotely operated vehicles. But before we show the video, Alison, was there something specific that sparked your interest in creating this type of video?
Yeah, just being able to connect robotics and engineering to, real life and real life in Rhode Island. This is something, this underwater exploration is something that's happening, right here in Rhode Island. And, for the students to see that, and, it's happening at URI, which is a university here in Rhode Island that the students can go to, that some of their friends are going to. So there are a lot of connections for the students and that the students can make through this.
Awesome. Yeah. When you're talking about connections, it's so an engineer at URI, so Dr. Brennan Phillips, kind of becomes the voice of the video and is narrating. I think that's another great thing as well, is that it's showing an actual individual who's at URI, and Brennan is fantastic. And so I think it's always nice to put a face to a position, a little career awareness as well, and how they work to solve a problem. So I think with that, we're going to check out the video and then we'll come right back.
It's difficult, expensive, and dangerous to send people down to the deepest parts of the ocean. I'm Dr. Brennan Phillips. I'm an ocean engineer, and I work with ROVs, which are really the workhorse of deep sea exploration. Scientists and engineers have built remotely operated vehicles, or ROVs, to do ocean exploration for them. An ROV is an underwater robot that is connected to a ship by a cable, and it is controlled by people who are in a control room on the ship. The ROV can go down to the deepest part of the sea to take video, make scientific measurements, or even sample the bottom, rocks, and wildlife. The video can be broadcast to the ship and to scientists on land. The samples the ROV collects are studied on the ship, and they can be brought back to laboratories on land to be studied further. By using ROVs, scientists and engineers can study the geology, chemistry, and biology of the bottom of the ocean without risking people's lives. They can then send the videos and samples from the ROV to people all over the world.
Yay! I love watching the videos. I will openly admit that I'm always like, yay! So this video, reminder to everybody, they're up on the PBS Learning Media site, which I'm pretty sure the link is being shared through the Facebook comment box, as well as through the YouTube chat. And if you just go on to PBS Learning Media and you search for Inner Space Center or the Ocean Exploration Series, you can find these videos there. So Alison, one of the things that you created as part of your supporting materials for this video is you crafted a worksheet for your students to go through to kind of reinforce the content that Brandon talks about in the video. So I thought it might be a little nifty. We'll see if our audience out there in YouTube and Facebook, if y'all have been paying attention. I think Alison and I were going to throw some questions at you guys to see if you can just type in the answers into Facebook or YouTube, or if not, Shannon, you get to play along and you can answer if you don't see those answers. But let's see. So everybody out there in Facebook and YouTube, we'll throw you an easy one first.
Yeah, Shannon's our ringer. Really easy to start off with. What does ROV stand for?
See, anybody out there? What do you think? What does ROV stand for? You can type in your answers. All right, Shannon, what does ROV stand for?
Remotely operated vehicle.
Well done, Shannon. Well done.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, there we go. Kim
There
Galvez.
we go.
There you go. Perfect. Well done. All right, Alison.
Okay. What is an ROV?
So maybe what are some of the different jobs that an ROV does? What did we learn about that video? What are tasks that an ROV can accomplish? What do y'all think? You don't have to type them all in. You can just type one. Brendan listed a few. All right, Shannon, what are some of the jobs an ROV can do?
I won't get too philosophical like Dr. Ballard does, but it's a way, I want to though, it was a way for us to extend our spirits to the deep. And it's a way for us to extend our senses, to send tools to depths that humans can't go safely for very long periods of time to do extended observations and sample collection.
Right. So if we want to go a little more, yep, there you go. Collecting samples, capturing video footage that we can't see with our own eyeballs, and bringing the video footage and or bringing the samples back up to shore. And as Brennan said, those samples then can be sent out to labs all across the globe if necessary. Those rock samples, the chimneys, I know that we have some of those actually in our rock and core lab back at GSO, and it's really fascinating to look at them. And they actually don't fall apart. We actually have chimneys that are in full structure, and you can hold them. And they're surprisingly heavy or light. It's very interesting. All right, Alison, one more question.
Okay. Name a reason that we would use an ROV rather than a manned vehicle.
Perfect. What do y'all think? Why would we use an ROV instead of a manned vehicle? Any ideas? All right, Shannon, what are we thinking?
So if you were to send people down, which we still do, there's still devices that people go into down to the depth, but it's just so much safer, so much less expensive because you can stay down, you can have your tools down at depth much, much longer than if you have people aboard.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. And that is what folks are saying here on Facebook and YouTube. They're saying that it's safer, it's less expensive, and then you can keep your instruments underwater for a longer period of time. So Shannon kind of alluded to, there are still manned submersibles. So Alvin out of Woods Hole, that is a submersible that folks usually think of. But you have to remember, even though those are still pressure protected, they're meant to go to depth, to set depths. All of these instruments are actually pressure tested to go to certain limits. So Hercules and Deep Discovery Harbor, the ROVs that are on Nautilus and Okeanos, they can go to about 6,000 meters. So each one is pressure tested, but you are limited by how much oxygen you need to breathe if you're in a manned submersible. And there are some other factors that go into play. So you can't stay down for 24, 36 hours at a time like you can do with a remotely operated vehicle. Oftentimes, Shannon, when you were out on Nautilus, I don't know if they ran, 24-hour ops where they really do, people are rotating in shifts on and off, but the instruments themselves stay underwater for the full amount of time. That's just something you can't do with manned submersibles. So I think we're going to pivot, and we're actually going to continue talking about ROVs, but show another one of the video resources that's available on PBS, the PBS Learning Media website. So Shannon, this was your video, one of the videos that you helped to produce, looking more at the engineering side and problem solving. So what was your creative spark for this resource?
So when I was getting ready to disembark, to leave Nautilus, the crew and staff were already getting ready for the next cruise. And the ROV engineers had Herc out on deck and had this big saw out, and they were literally carving some of the syntactic foam off of the vehicle, because the next cruise that they were going out had other instruments that they needed to account for. So there's this constant balance happening, these trade-offs going on with buoyancy, either adding positive buoyancy or removing it, depending on what the needs are for a particular dive. And I observed dives where they had to adjust the buoyancy of the vehicle during the dive if they were like delivering a heavy instrument to the seafloor. But then they had other work that they had to do, and they had to maintain control and not have too much positive buoyancy. So that was kind of where the idea for this came from.
Awesome. And so just so folks know, when Shannon said syntactic foam, when you look at the ROVs, Hercules is bright yellow on top, Deep Discover, another ROV we usually work with, is white on top. That large chunk of color, that's actually the syntactic foam. And it's similar, but not quite similar to those mannequin heads that Shannon was showing. It's actually foam that's got glass beads and kind of an epoxy resin or plastic scaffolding that helps it keep its form and not compress like that mannequin head that Shannon showed.
Right. So the syntactic foam can withstand those great pressures, whereas this foam loses its buoyancy under those conditions.
Awesome. All right. So again, if anyone has questions at all, feel free to type those in. But I think we are now going to show this next video.
Ocean exploration takes a great team. But exploration can be unpredictable. It also takes great engineering design to create the tools needed to get the job done. And when things get stressful, the team needs to keep their cool and work together to deal with whatever comes up. A remotely operated vehicle, or ROV, like this takes years to build and can cost millions of dollars. Ship time for conducting exploration and research is also very expensive.
Oh, it's so nice. Okay, follow us. Show us where is the bed. Nice. Perfect. Unbelievable. It's like a movie.
So, in the case of a power outage like this, we need to be able to recover the vehicle, fix it, and get it back to work as quickly as possible. If you are an engineer designing an ROV for deep ocean exploration, what could you do with your design that would make it easier to recover the vehicle in this situation?
Yeah. Yay!
Yay! Yeah, so that was a unique situation where the ROV lost power in the middle of a dive. So under these conditions, that's a very expensive tool that's down many meters away in the water column. We want to be able to recover that safely. So what does the designer have to keep in mind for a situation like that to make sure that the ROV comes back up to the surface? But also making sure that the ROV doesn't have too much positive buoyancy so that they can still navigate well at depth.
All right. Well, I know you just asked a question, but I'm going to interrupt. And we actually got a question. So on Facebook, I want to make sure that we answer some questions that are coming up here as well, because I know we've been doing a lot of chatting. But so Kim Galvez wants to know if there's always 2 ROVs deployed at the same time.
So it depends on the ship that you're working on. When I was on the Endeavor, the smaller ROV that the URI team had out was a single ROV system. And that actually caused some difficulty. So the cruise that I did with them, we went off the coast of Rhode Island. We were actually looking for a shipwreck, and there were some really robust currents that they were dealing with. So with the 2 ROV system, like you saw on Nautilus, you have Argus and Hercules. And Argus serves to decouple the movement of the ship and the surface from the ROV that's at depth. So the ROV doing the work at depth can have, a buffer from that motion. And the small ROV that we were working with on Endeavor didn't have that, and it made for a very challenging situation. So that's the purpose of the 2 ROV system.
Perfect. Awesome. Thanks, Shannon. So if we pivot back to the end of the video, the question you asked. So I think you kind of alluded to it and how you have to kind of track buoyancy, and they were shaving off the syntactic foam or making the device heavier or lighter in that matter or in that situation. So you actually then, one of your supporting materials or that you have or that can go along with it in the classroom is you actually have a buoyancy demonstration that can kind of help reinforce some of these concepts where you're talking about pressure, but buoyancy is something else that you can connect back to the ROVs and the work.
So we have an engineering design challenge where you give teams different little challenges with the goal of getting their model ROV to ascend at a particular rate. So we are going to do a quick little demo of that. All right, so this is one way to carry out the engineering design challenge that we came up with to go along with this series. So I have here just a really tall mason jar, but you could use a graduated cylinder if you have one of those that you can see through, or any other tall water holding vessel that you can see through. And I used a plastic pasture pipette as the basis for each of these mini ROVs. And I simply snip off the stem about a 0.5 centimeter away from the top of the bulb there. Then I grab my trusty hot glue gun and a strong neodymium magnet, and I glue the magnet to the other end of the pipette bulb for my mini ROV. You'll notice I used some paint and I used some yellow filament here just to kind of give a little extra contrast. So when I put this in the water container, you can see it from the background a little bit better. So for my release mechanism, when I have my little ROV in my water tank, I use my external magnet here. I drag that down, and when my research partner tells me that it's time, I'm going to just pull this magnet away and release it, and it will float up. And my partner will time record the time it takes for my mini ROV to travel between these 2 markings. And so what I did is I just used my ruler and a marker and marked out a 10 centimeter span. So we're going to record the amount of time it takes to travel that 10 centimeters. And as the instructor, I would probably give each different engineering team a different set of engineering criteria in terms of the ascent rate, the amount of time it takes to travel that 10 centimeter span in the water column, a different range of times that they need to achieve for their design.
Awesome. So that was a great example of an activity, pretty straightforward activity that you can use to connect more physics types of topics straight back to ocean science, and in this instance, ROVs. So we've actually been getting a couple of questions through Facebook, which is great, or through YouTube. I believe these are coming in through Facebook. So we actually had a question from Katie Hanlon, who wanted to know how the individual ROVs are named. So I don't know. And as a educator and science communicator, I always tell everybody it is okay to say, I don't know. Some people might do contests. I think there might be a submission process, but I'm going to bring Colleen actually back in if we can as well. And I'm going to ask Alison and Shannon or Colleen. So Colleen, if you could name an ROV, what would you name it? This feels like a question my 3rd grade son would be asking me. This is what I deal with on our morning walks. But what would you name an ROV if you could name it?
Oh gosh, I'm not sure. I think I would probably think of a character maybe that is tied to the ocean, but I'm not sure.
Oh, that works. That works. Yep. What do you think, Shannon? I'm sure you've had a name for an ROV.
I would have to think about a marine organism that has good vision and look at some Latin names, I think.
Alison, do you have a name?
I don't know, maybe like Flipper after a famous underwater.
Fantastic. And then if y'all there on Facebook or YouTube have some ideas of what you might name an ROV, we can have our own content here. We could be putting those up live if you have ideas. Feel free, we can put them. Oh, Ariel, of course. The Little Mermaid. Yep. That sounds great. And then actually this ties into Shannon.
Oh, I lost you. I think I know where you were going though. So I was talking about a neodymium magnet, and that they come in all shapes and sizes. But so an extension of this, if students were interested in exploring this further, would be one of the competitive ROV programs that exist. So there's 2 that I know of, Sea Perch and Mate. And I think we have a couple pictures of the local underwater robotics derby that we did last year. So these are middle schoolers that took a kit. They had some basic training. We gave training in soldering, and they put together a little control board that they used to drive this ROV. 3 simple motors built out of PVC. There's some buoyancy testing, but it's a simple thing, but it's a very powerful experience when you can take something, build it yourself, and then go fly it in a pool. So this was at URI last May.
And we've done this actually as well with a bunch of our different camp programs or some of the other educational programs we've run. And the students, I think I may have cut out, but they've named these. If I remember correctly, we had Trident. Somebody was naming them after Pokemon characters, which you think I would know all of them because I have an 8.5-year-old son, but I don't. But it's a lot of fun for the students. And they really take ownership in each of their ROVs, which I think is really important. And then they get to actually see something that they built work in that capacity as well, which is fantastic.
And more importantly, it's the opportunity for them to explain their design thinking to adults. And that's a really powerful experience that goes along with it.
For sure. I completely agree. So I think we're actually coming up on the half hour. But I do want to, again, thank Alison and Shannon and Colleen. Really quickly, I think, Alex, we have that video that shows actually the resources up on PBS Learning Media. And y'all can go check out these resources as part of maybe your World Ocean Day homework. And not only go look at the video resources that we have produced, there are other videos and supporting materials under this ocean exploration umbrella, but there are a whole host of other really interesting science topics and really pretty much anything that you might want to search for. You can find Colleen Wright in the resource library. All you pretty much have to search and you can find different resources under those topics. But it's a pretty broad umbrella, right, Colleen?
It is, absolutely.
Yeah. So any other ideas that you guys have for homework? My 2 educators, or 3 educators actually, because Colleen, I know that was before being at PBS, you were also a formal educator. So what do you think? Homework for World Ocean Day. Do you guys have anything that you can think of?
Yes, go pick up plastic off of the shore and build a sculpture.
Lovely.
That's a good one.
Yeah, get to the ocean.
Yeah, definitely get outside while you can. It definitely helps during our current situation when it's nice out. And I know it's hot today, so definitely getting outside would be a great one. Go to the World Ocean Day website. There may be events that are happening locally. Actually, I think there's a lot of youth components to it as well. I know they have a youth advisory board. There's something really interesting to check out. There are a lot of different art contests that are happening. I know the bow seat awareness competition is one, and NOAA runs one as well. So there might be other ways to incorporate that sculpture that you go create that Shannon mentioned from the various plastic you might find on the beach. You could submit that to a contest as well. So lots of different ways. And then remember, as your summer learning, look to PBS Learning Media as well for a resource there. But again, otherwise, thank you so much to Colleen, Alison, Shannon for taking their time, not only today, but also the time in helping and working with the Inner Space Center team to develop these resources. We really do appreciate all of your efforts. Check out all the different websites that I know have been posted up on YouTube and Facebook, and then follow along with URI, GSO, the ISC social media handles, as well as Rhode Island PBS. They're out there on social media as well. And if there are any topics that you all might be interested in exploring future GSO Ocean Classroom Live, definitely let us know. There is a contact form that we put up and send out after that you can provide your feedback and suggestions for future classroom ideas. We really appreciate that feedback. But otherwise, thanks again. Please be well, stay safe, and otherwise we will see you all again. Bye.
Thank you, Holly.
Bye.